Starting up this list is a trap card that was terrible upon release, but gained some use with the release of, well, two certain cards that do exactly the same thing. Gift Card is a normal trap that lets you give the opponent 3,000 life points. And that's all it is. The unaware mind would see this trap and think just how bad it is, given it gives the opponent life points for no inherent benefit. And especially if you're a low-level duelist or you just started playing the game, or any card game for that matter, life points seem to matter a lot for whatever reason. At least that's why I see people at my locals that play Diane Keto, so that makes them last a fifth of a turn longer. We all know that kid, we were all that kid at one point. However, then we come to Nurse Reficule and Bad Reaction to Samochi. These two cards give Gift Card a better purpose, as it allows you to flip the life point gain into a 3k burn effect alongside many other cards like Try and Guess and Paths of Destiny to try to OTK your opponent. Not to mention that Nurse herself got a name change that includes her in the Dark Lord archetype, meaning she is now searchable off of a spell card. Quite the shift in joke cards, wouldn't you say? Gift Card is number 10 only because it was bad on release but got some use in the future, which is kind of the opposite of what a joke card is. They're supposed to never be good, but this one somehow found a way because of a weird mechanic that's only really explored in 2 cards and abused by like 5. Regardless, it was a joke on release, and it belongs here. Coming in at number 9 is a terrible spell that basically makes you neg-2 yourself and give your opponent very necessary information for them to, oh, I don't know, win the game. The Humble Sentry is a spell that has you reveal your own hand, and then shuffle a card in your hand into the deck. Not only are you losing 2 cards from your opening hand, including this card itself, of course, you let the opponent see your hand. You effectively give the opponent valuable info to see just how bad your hand truly is, or even let them know you have certain hand traps in order to play around them. Obviously, this is a play on the card, the Forceful Sentry, a banned card that you probably remember as one of the 3 incredibly unfair spell cards running GOAT format, along with Delinquent Duo and Confiscation. The other 2 don't really have joke equivalents, but the Humble Sentry more than makes up for that by just being a Forceful Sentry from the opponent's side that you get to activate. Completely unusable, and that's how it should be. I love joke cards. Can we get some more Yu-Gi-Oh, please? I mean, aside from the other 8 on the list that I love. Next is an infamous spell just for how much worse it is than Humble Sentry and basically literally any other card in the game. That card is Pot of Generosity. For those of you who don't know, Pot of Generosity has you return 2 cards from your hand into the deck, and then you shuffle your deck. That's all it does. You effectively rip 2 cards out of your hand for no inherent benefit. It's Pot of Greed in reverse, and I kind of love it. While every other pot seems to want to give you cards and be named after a sin of some kind, or a synonym for greed, a la avarice or desires, this one just wants you to be happy with what you have and give to the charity that is in your deck. It's like tithe in a card. What could be more holy than that? In either case, it almost seems like this card had to exist so that Pot of Duality could be a card that was printed, as no other pot card up to that point really cared much for being fair in any way, shape, or form. Avarice is banned, Pot of Greed is never going to be unbanned, and then Duality came around and it's like, oh, it's expensive and everyone's going to play it, but hey, it's not busted. The duality of man, truly something to look at and think it's deep when you're 13. To all my younger viewers, please stop looking at the art of change of heart and thinking of it as like this deep metaphor about the duality of man, and it's like, ooh, the one side is going to be the good, but then you gotta have the bad side, and you're going to be bad, and sometimes, you know, I'm a naughty little kid, I smoke Mary Jane outside my window sometimes. No, it's not deep, it's not metaphor in any way, shape, or form. Just grow out of it. Please. Thank you. Coming in at number 7 is a meme of a monster only made for the purpose of a self-alt win con, unless you pull off some seriously jank plays. True Exodia! As in, the rest of them were fake. You remember that one? The one the Weevil threw off the boat? Yeah, that's fake Exodia. That's like illegitimate Exodia. And True Exodia is the newest card for this list. It's incredibly weird. Basically, if the only monsters on the entire field, including your opponent's side, are itself and the 4 other pieces of Exodia, being the right arm, the right leg, the left arm, and the left leg, then the opponent of the card's controller wins the duel. Yep. This card is effectively a lose condition. The only use this card has is the most jank builds ever, by giving it to the opponent and then comboing the other 4 pieces on the field. Yes, it's awful, but it's doable! Ever heard of a card called Give and Take? Just spam it on your opponent's side of the board after you basically do all the Link plays and play Treasure Panda just to summon all the pieces, then just get rid of Treasure Panda. Boom! Exodia! Yay! This thing is jank that works every now and again. It's a lot harder to make use of this card than any other Exodia win condition. Yes, I'm counting Exodius for this, considering this is a lose condition anyway. But play like Yugi and flip the odds around in your favor. And by that, I mean cheat. Coming in at number 6 is another trap that is entirely the wrong way to give the opponent more cards. Like that was even a good idea in the first place. Really, Reincarnation is the only card that I can think of that does that incredibly well and is good. Gift of Greed is a normal trap with the only effect of giving the opponent a draw 2. Yeah, that's all it does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't need a guy like me on the internet to tell you why giving the opponent more resources is a bad idea. Hell, the only good that can come from this is if you're playing... Well, actually, I was just talking about Reincarnation. How about Trickstars? And if you give more draws for Licorice Burn and the more cards that'll get banished and put to hand through Reincarnation, maybe you'd play this in Empty Jar? No. Even Trickstars and Empty Jar naturally do this tactic without Gift of Greed, and have better cards for the job like Present Card or Disturbance Strategy. No, this card is only there to say the cards in your deck are exclusively there to give your opponent cards. If you win with this in your deck, you are legally allowed to take your opponent's house keys, go to their place of residence, and watch their kids grow up in their place. So for this one, let me set the stage for you real quick. Nistro versus Yuma. Nistro is in general a cool character, and his Heroic Challenger deck is actually a good deck that's giving Yuma a run for his money. In fact, Nistro is so good that he puts Yuma to 100 life points, and in an impossible-to-win situation. All seems well until Nistro enacts a sense of goodwill, or at least massive flexing, and decides to play a card that fully restores the opponent's life points for a draw 2. Does that sound stupid? Well, I mean, it is, but Yuma deserves it. A card that has such an effect is probably anime only, right? Well, no, it's actually a real card! For you see, we have the trap card Heroic Gift. Both its IRL and anime versions have the same concept. You get to draw 2 cards, but only when the opponent's life points are at 2,000 or less, and it fully restores them to 8k in real life, 4k in the anime. Just a full restore. Reno Jackson if you play Hearthstone. Apply this to real life now. You're basically making, as your draw power, a slow-ass trap that can only be used if the opponent is at or below a quarter of their starting life points, and then you fully restore them, for whatever reason. And all because, and I joke not, Nistro doesn't like taking out weaker opponents. Ladies, this man is single and you are missing out. My analytics say that I have like 3 women watching my videos at any given time, so if you want a piece of Nistro, go on ahead, because who else can you find that flexes this aggressively on children? Well, yeah, Jake Paul, but why would you want to be with Jake Paul? One of the worst moves a duelist makes is using a card or cards that place a massive hindrance onto yourself for little benefit. There are, of course, cards with their own hindrances, however, these cards typically give another benefit to counter it, such as incantations and locking the extra deck while in the field, and in exchange you get great ritual material spamming. A spell that is not like that is the spell card Calming Magic. Calming Magic is a normal spell that can only be used at the start of your main phase 1. For the turn this spell card is activated, neither player can summon monsters during the main phases or the battle phase. Effectively, you give up any summons or monster plays for the turn for what exactly? Making artifacts go off in the end phase where they would anyway? It's not like they can't just chain Sanctum to summon Scythe or Moral Talk and add some major hurt to your already locked down plays. That's just miserable in the end of the day. It's barely even a joke card, as you can make a case that this could actually be used for something. Send replays. Email's always on my channel. Prove me wrong. Remember what I said about cards with little to no benefits and major downsides? Well, Cold Feet exists, and I am happy about it. Cold Feet is a normal spell card that prevents you from activating, setting, or in general using the effects of any spells or trap cards for the turn. Note, it's only for you. AKA, you neuter yourself for a turn for anything that could help you out if you run it. The only reason this exists is for the sole purpose of being a Cold Wave for only yourself. Cold Wave, the banned spell that locks down both players from playing or setting spells and traps until your next turn, is banned for very good reason, as it straight up says Disruption can only be found in the hand. This card is just to say that you're getting ready, you're wondering what to do, that girl across the bar is giving you those eyes and no one's ever really done that for you, and you consider going over to talk, but you can't actually find anything clever to say, so you go, "Hi!" and then you realize your voice cracked, and then you immediately excuse yourself to the bathroom where you climb out a window out of sheer terror, and then you tell your friends that she was crazy. I mean, what would I even do with her? I mean, she was like an anti-vaxxer or something. Don't ask me questions. How was your clubbing experience? Yeah, funnily enough, that's actually on the text of Cold Feet. Next is another normal trap card, and oh boy! Extreme Victory was a set, wasn't it? Localized Tornado is a normal trap card that shuffles all cards from your hand and graveyard into your deck. Yeah, that's it. That's all it does. Force you into a top-decking situation while the opponent likely has a full board ready to tear you a new anus. Granted, while it does have a few uses for... let me think. What are archetypes that no one really cares about except for one guy in my comment section to prove me wrong? Oh, Flower Cardians! I mean, you don't want this in Flower Cardigans either, because it's just clogging the draw deck and bores the opponent to... You don't want this card in the deck anyway, because you don't want cards like this clogging the draw deck that bores the opponent to death before you make the first Synchro monster. Granted, it may be enough to rouse them from their slumber, just go, I'm sorry, what is that card? That's when I actually know what it does, and that I actually have read before in my life, unlike the other Cardigans. What is this? Picks it up, puts it down. Oh, yeah, you can do that if you like. What is worse than a card that forces you into a top-decking situation? Oh, how about a card that effectively rips you to shreds just for playing it? An unfortunate report truly is unfortunate, but just for you, it's actually quite a blessing for the opponent. Effectively, your opponent gets 2 battle phases for their next battle phase when this card is used. You effectively have given your opponent a Mischief of the Time Goddess that does not need Valkyries to work. So, say goodbye to your board and the rest of your life points. It surely lives up to the name, I guess. Imagine going out onto the battlefield and your general tells you to keep fighting, while also letting slip that your opponents are literally twice as fast as you. It sounds like a painful ROM hack for a GBA Fire Emblem game.